My Kitchenaid artisan mixer stopped spinning. The motor was still running, but the Planetary, which is the rotating piece under the mixer, that stopped working. So I know how to replace this. I'm going to make a little video showing how I did it. First, safety, obviously unplug the Kitchenaid from the wall, and then you need to purchase. You can do this online or through a local appliance repair shop. This is a worm gear for the Kitchenaid, so I'm going to show you how to replace that today. That cost me, it was $15. It was local, it was a small shop. You could probably get it cheaper if you wanted to, but I figured $15 to replace a $300 unit was that has given me 5 years of service, was perfectly fine. Okay. Quick overview of the steps. I'm going to pull off this drip ring with a screwdriver. I'm going to remove the back panel, which houses some electronics and the back of the motor. I'm going to remove some screws under here, bolts under here that keep this housing attached to the top. Inside this is the motor. I'll lift the motor off. We'll see up here. We'll remove the Planetary from the bottom. The Planetary, it's called the Planetary, by the way, because like the planets of a solar system orbit the sun, this mixer shaft rotates to mix the products. So there's a series of gears inside the Planetary that rotate around what they call the sun. So there's a sun gear and a shaft that come down, which the motor spins. That one shaft is surrounded by a couple of, they call planet gears, that then, and in this case it's one planet gear that spins, so hence the term the Planetary. So take the Planetary off, which releases the motor from the rest of the unit. Lift the motor off. Inside there will be a tower covered in grease, and that's where we'll replace the old broken worm gear with the new one. So you can remove the drip ring from the edge of the Planetary. I've loosened a lot of this, so I'm just going to use my screwdriver. You would normally need to tap it with a hammer. There it is. This is the rear of the Kitchenaid. Just use a Phillips screwdriver. Loosen the little screw at the top of the motor housing, or the housing. There it's on. Oops. Great. Just do that manually. And then it just pops right off. There's a small paper gasket in the back. There it is at the bottom. That should stay in place. If it comes out, then you just replace it into the bottom of the housing right here. Okay. And at the end of the video, I will do a little extra bonus. I'll show how to use just these two screws to adjust the speed of the motor, which should be set to the lowest setting, the 2, should be set to 1 rotation per second for this Kitchenaid. There's a small hole here, and inside of that is a pin. Use a punch or a nail. I've used a Robertson small screwdriver. Just pop that pin out, and then the Planetary will release. So I'll do that, and then I'll show how to pull the Planetary out. So the next step is to remove the Planetary. What I do, you need 2 hands. I've only got one because I'm filming. But you basically take a screwdriver on each side, insert it, and then just applying the same amount of pressure, push down, and the Planetary will pop off. It might take a bit. You might actually need to put a screwdriver on one side and gently tap it with a hammer, but then repeat, because it's machined metal, so it's very, very, it fits very well, basically, both the 2 parts. So just very gently tap this off, and the Planetary will pop off. And then just to show you just to show you visually what I meant by the Planetary, there's the inside, and is the shaft in the middle, that's the sun, and there's a sun gear in there. You can't really see it, but there is. And then the thing that's rotating there, that's the planet gear. And I'll just push this up a bit so you can see it rotate. A little bit more. There. Okay, so you can see the planet gear rotating as this spins. And that is how you create the mixing motion. Again, why they call this a Planetary. Okay, there's the Planetary off. Here's what it looks like. Right there. So again, when it goes back on, you simply slide this onto the shaft and push up. You might need to apply some pressure. You might need to bang it a little bit. Just be gentle. I think this is coated. It's coated with like a plasticky metal, so it does break. But I think underneath it's pretty strong. pretty strong steel. So now there are 4 screws. There's one, two, there's one in the back here, and there's one over here. One of these is typically, this one will have a locking washer, because this, what these 4 screws do is they hold the motor housing in place. So if the screws were all to fall out through vibration, the motor housing could potentially fall off or whatever. So they put one locking washer in the back. I'll do that one first, just so you know exactly what I'm talking about. And these come out, they're not in there with any great strength. When you put them back in, I would just tighten them, you know, till you don't feel like you're over tightening them. That's all I could say. There goes the screw, or the bolt. Okay, and you can see the little lock washer on there. So I'll go and take off all 4 bolts right now. We've got those, excuse me, got those 5 screws from underneath removed. Then there are 5 bolts, I should say, up on the ring here. So just remove them. I've removed 4 of them. This is the last one. And after that's done, we can then remove the motor housing from the top of the. I've got all the screws taken out, the 4 from underneath, the 5 from the ring. The next thing to do is remove the motor housing from the top of the unit. Before you do that, remove or just pull out the stress or strain relief from the back. You know, that stops the power cord from being yanked right out of the motor. So nice little innovation. Whoever thought of that many years ago. I think I'll need 2 hands to pull this out. You want to pull it up evenly right across. Because there is a shaft going up here with gears that are meshed to it, so you do need 2 hands and do it evenly. I've removed the motor housing now, so I've cleaned off a lot of the grease. You don't need to do this the part over here. It's more about the tower that you're concerned about. But I wanted to point out 2 things. First, well, 3 things. There's the worm gear. That's the part that fails, right? So we're going to take this tower off. There's 3 bolts, 1, 2, and 3 around the edge. When I put this back on, I'll point out there are 2 posts for alignment to put this tower back in just perfectly, because you want the gears to mesh exactly, you know, the way that they need to in order to work. But the 2 little things I wanted to point out. One was there's a plastic gasket that surrounds the assembly here. It's prone to pop up, so if it does pop up and break, definitely buy a replacement, because you don't want warmed grease dripping down out of your new mixer or your repaired mixer. And the second is when this gear fails, it's a sacrificial worm gear, so made it of nylon. It's made to fail, right? So it fails because you're trying to mix dough that's too hard, basically. So rather than the motor, which is expensive and not impossible to replace, but harder to replace, instead of the motor burning out, they put a sacrificial worm gear in here that breaks and it sacrifices itself before you burn out the motor. Okay, so when that happens, though, there are little pieces of plastic that will drip off or fall off and spin around in the grease, and if you need to do your best to get those pieces out. Okay, so just throw them all away, because they'll come in and maybe jam up the gears later on. So now what I'm going to do is just, I won't show it on the video, but I'm going to take these 3 bolts off and remove the tower. So this is the gear to be replaced. You'll notice a little plug pin right there where my thumb is. Just pop that out with a little punch, or I use either a little small Robertson bit driver, or even a nail works. Okay, they all work fine. Just pop it out, and then when you're done, when you get a little bit through, just take a wrench and just pull it through, or pliers, and just pull it through. Alright, there's the entire assembly. So that's the tower right there, and I pulled out the shaft, which contains a little gear at the bottom, and then there's a washer, and then, important to remember when you replace the gear, the metal hub goes down, and then another washer on the top. So I've put the replacement gear on already, so it's a bit greasy, but I just wanted to show, there's where my gear failed. You can see right there where it's all chewed up. So I must have had dough that was quite hard, and I caused the worm screw to dig into the worm gear and caused it to fail. Okay, so there's the new one, which is already lubed up quite a lot, but you can see it's perfectly fine and new. So what I'll do is replace the worm gear. I'll discard that. I'll replace the worm gear onto the shaft. What I'll do is the washers are pretty sticky because they're filled up with grease. So what I'll do is put the washers on each side, get them lined up, starting to get them lined up properly, and then put that back into the slot so as to line the washers up, and then you can basically just slide the shaft back in. I think it might be a two-hand operation, so you get the idea. I'll do this myself. I'll line the washers up better and come back. So I'm replacing the pin now. One thing I found is the pin. Clean everything off. Okay, so just clean the pin, take the shaft out, clean it off, take the worm gear out, clean off the metal part so you can see the holes. And then what I found is I played with different combinations of the pin going into the hole on the gear and then the hole through the shaft. I found there was one way that this pin went in quite easily. It might have been from the manufacturing process, I'm not sure, but try to recreate that process, because otherwise you're going to really, maybe damage the unit if you try to put the pin back in, and you're basically shoving a, too large pin through a too small hole. You might damage something or whatnot. Anyways, that's what I found. I'm going to just pop that back in now. And if you clean off the pin, the holes, by the way, you can see the holes line up, which is the reason for cleaning all that off. All right, there's the tower put back on, screwed in, and now I'll replace the motor housing on the top. One thing to point out, there's lots of grease in there, and I don't think it matters where it goes exactly, because it'll all seep down and hit the transmission. But I've clumped it more along the side of the worm screw. The other thing is, when the motor housing goes back on, there's two things to be aware of. There's it's a receiving female end for the top of the shaft, so those two have to line up, but then also the gears need to mesh, so the worm gear needs to mesh with the screw, and that's the key thing, right? And then also the pasta maker gear needs to mesh with the one of the gears over here. So what happens is, when you put the motor housing back onto the top of the unit, you just have to go down here to the bottom and just rotate I'm just rotating the Planetary right now. You can see how it's rotating the gears up here. You just need to gently rotate it to make sure that the gear teeth from there mesh with the teeth from here, and you'll find it'll take a few seconds and the motor housing will slide on very, very nicely. All right, there's the housing back on, and the next step is replace the rear housing, replace the 5 bolts that hold the Planetary in place, replace the 4 bolts that hold the whole unit together. Remember to put one of the locking screw washer bolt in the back, and then you're basically done. There's no other tips. The only other thing I wanted to do, I'm going to just move my location here. I'm going to show you how to adjust the speed, okay, for these mixers. The last step is the pin that needs to go in there. I found, and you'll probably find as well, that the hole, I'll see if I can zoom in, the hole here, it aligns perfectly, but that's because I took a small piece of hard metal. In fact, I used this, just a small Robertson-sized bit driver, and I just pressed it in there. I tried to find a common space between the Planetary and the hole that was on the inside, and then I just pushed it until the 2 holes were aligned. Okay, so, and the reason you have to do that, you cannot pound the Planetary up any more than it currently is, and when you align this, it'll pull something on the inside down. Okay, so it'll be very, very easy. Don't try to pound the Planetary up. All right. This is a bonus video. This is going to show how to adjust the speed of the Planetary, or the rotation on the Kitchenaid mixer. There's 3 screws in the back once you remove the housing. The bottom one is more of an anchor screw. Okay, so just adjust that until you get a certain speed. That's all I can say. If you adjust it one way or another, the speed will slow down or speed up. So I'll turn it on to show you what I mean. So it's rotating at whatever speed. As I unscrew it, it's slowing down. You can hear it slowing down. It's just going to a crawl. I'm going to just turn it in right now until it goes fast. And that is let's call that the normal speed. If I go even further in, it'll speed up.
and then turn off. So what I would do, go to where it turns off, and then back it off a couple of turns. That's the starting spot for that back bottom screw. Okay, so that screw actually you don't use that to do anything. It's more of an anchor. What you want to do is look at the top two screws. Okay. Um, so what you're doing is now you're going to basically be adjusting this plate here forward or backwards, okay? And the distance in which you set these screws determines how much of an angle there is on that plate. So there are, I don't know if I can get in close enough, but right there is an anchoring nut and there's a screw. So the anchoring nut, after you've done adjusting, tighten the anchor nut, drive it in, okay? So clockwise, right tight. I've loosened this right now so that I've got some play with this screw in the front. So basically take a needle nose, which I've done here, and loosen those nuts on the top so that you can then play with the screws on the top. Right? Once you've loosened those nuts, turn on the machine. It's going at a certain speed. Okay? Turn it off. So you can get very fussy with this, but the Kitchenaid recommends one planetary rotation per second for the lowest speed. Okay, so if you get a wash or something, you could do that. I'm just going to do this by 1,000, 2,000, and just adjust it to that point. So I'll turn this on. Okay, there it is. And you want to set them both to the same distance. I'm going to turn them in. Okay, half turn each to start with. And you can hear it slow down. So going in reduces the speed, and you can see that turning really slowly now. That's too slow, okay? So I want to put it back to where it was, and I'm going to back the screws out, turn them counterclockwise until the machine Planetary speeds up to where I want it. So there's a quarter turn, quarter turn, quarter turn, quarter turn. And I'm going to go, okay, 1,000, 2,000. That's about 1 per second. Okay, so I'm going to say well, that's fine. The bottom is fine. Those are fine. I'm now going to take the turn this off. I'm not going to video it, but I'll take my needle nose pliers and just screw in the nuts until they're locked into the back. So right tight, clockwise. Screw them until they're tight, and then your speed is now set.